Oh, but you said ornaments.
Just follow along. You'll get it. Did you see? You got it? Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Hi. We have a few people filtering in, but I want to get started so we get you out of here to enjoy the rest of the day on time. My name is Mikkel St. Germain. I am the Director of Parent and Family Engagement. It's very nice to be spending time with you today and throughout this week. I've met a lot of you across campus, and it's been a pleasure. Whether you're here on campus or you're watching this virtually, we welcome you. We have a wonderful panel of administrators from across campus life and the college today, and a few of them are proud Brown alums as well, so they can tell you about that. I would like to introduce to you on stage Matthew Branch, who is the Associate Director of Student Activities, Peggy Chang, Director of Curricular Resource Center and Associate Dean of the College, Mia McKinney, Campus Life Fellow and recent grad, Felicia Salinas Moniz, Director of the Sarah Doyle Center for Women and Gender, and Sean Thompson, Director of First Year Experience and Houses in Residential Life. In the audience, we have some students and some other colleagues as well. We have Lila Zimbalist, who's class of 23 and is a Meiklejohn advisor and a CRC advisor as well. And we have Daniel Newgarden, class of 2025, also Meiklejohn and CRC advisor. And in the front of the audience, I would love to introduce Janet Cooper Nelson, the chaplain of Brown University. And we also have Edmund McCullough, the associate chaplain of the university for the Catholic community. And we are also joined by Delphine Demosthenes, sorry if I mangled that at the end, associate university chaplain for the Protestant community. And we may be welcoming Amir Toft, who is the associate chaplain for the Muslim community. And after this session is over, feel free to introduce yourselves, and they will be here for questions if you have them. So before we get started, I'd like to take a poll, old school style, just with raised hands. You don't have to use your phone or anything like that. And while I'm doing this poll, I ask you to look around the audience so you can see the responses of your fellow families and parents. So raise your hand if you've just dropped off your first child who's gone to college? All right. Great. And you can put your hands down. Now, anybody here who's dropping off their last child? All right. So that's a different set of emotions, right? And then raise your hand if this was a child in the middle of your group. We've got a few of those as well. All right. Now, raise your hand if your student is an international student. Great. Welcome, and thank you for coming a far way to join us on campus. Now, raise your hand if your student is a transfer student coming from another university. All right, we've got one of those, a couple, right? Welcome. So now that we have a sense of who's with us today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about me and my department. My department, the Department of Parent and Family Engagement, was created as a support to parents and families, all parents and families, to ensure that they have up-to-date information and that they know where to turn for information, and to provide opportunities of engagement like this and Family Weekend and the webinars that we hope you tune into, and to foster a sense of community among parents and families. Because it isn't just your student who is becoming part of this community, it's all of you as well. And about me personally, I've been at Brown for almost 13 years now, and when I started, my two children were 2 and 5. Now they're 15 and 17. So if you do the math, I'm kind of in a similar transition period as all of you. They grew up visiting me here at Brown University, running around the green, meeting my colleagues, and attending events. And my goal, they feel very comfortable on this campus. They feel part of the family and the fabric of this community. And my goal is to help make you and your family feel just as much a part of that community. Because what makes Brown unique and vibrant and interesting place is all of you and your students. My colleagues on stage this afternoon represent just a small sample of the services and support that is available to your student as they make this important transition to college life. I will have each of them provide a very brief overview of the services and programs provided by their offices. And while they're doing that, if you could take the opportunity this time to use your phone to scan the QR code and send us some questions, which we'll answer towards the end of this program. So let's kick it off with, I'm going to go to the far end of the table, Sean.
You know, Felicia told me that you would start over there, so okay.
That's right.
Cool. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see you all. My name is Sean Thompson, and I'm the Director for First Year Experience and Houses here at Brown. I use the he series for my pronouns, and I am here to represent the Office of Residential Life, First Year Experience, and Orientation. I've been here at Brown for approximately 2 years, and if y'all could do the math, that means I was here March 2020, that fateful month, and I started virtually at the Brown community. A rough experience, I must say, to connect with my colleagues over the Zoom, over meetings, but all at home, while we were all trying to get our students safely back in their hometowns and home countries. Under my portfolio, I supervised the 11 first-year buildings on campus, so I was greeting most of you yesterday during move-in. It's good to see you back another day. We have about 105 community coordinators that I supervise that are upper division students that provide navigation and counseling for your students in the residence halls. I'm also in charge of the 80 Bruno leaders that help the students navigate through the orientation experience as well. I do a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm really happy to be here to support you, and I'm here for any questions that you might have. Nice to meet you all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Felicia Salinas Moniz. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of the Sarah Doyle Center for Women and Gender. I have been at Brown as a staff person for 11 years, but I actually started as a graduate student. I received my PhD in American Studies, so I've had a lot of time to work with students here on campus, to be involved in the center that I now direct. I was formerly the graduate student coordinator there, and really our center is dedicated to gender in all its many intersections, and we are one of 6 centers that are dedicated to supporting students across identities and experiences. So some of the other student centers that I work with are my colleagues at the Brown Center for Students of Color, the LGBTQ Center, the Undocumented First Generation and Low Income Student Center, the Global Brown Center for International Students, and the Office of Military Affiliated Students. So we like to call ourselves affectionately the cousin centers, because we all work with your students. We collaborate throughout the year. We provide programs and resources. We are all physical locations. So Sarah Doyle Center specifically is the yellow house right across from Keeney Quad. There's a flag right over the door. You enter the space. I've been telling students, I was at the resource fair a little while ago saying, you'll enter in and you'll think you're walking into someone's house, and you are. This is your house. This is another home away from home, and you should make it your space. Some of the resources that we offer at Sarah Doyle are a library. We have a library with over 4,000 women's and gender studies texts. We have an art gallery, community garden, and really just a lot of cozy, comfortable meeting space for people to gather. So I really look forward to engaging with your questions, and just excited to have you here.
Hi, my name's Mia McKinney. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Campus Life Fellow, but I'm also a member of the class of 2022, so I just graduated this past May with a degree in Africana Studies. Thank you. As the Campus Life Fellow, I work in the Office of the Vice President of Campus Life, and I get to advise and support the senior staff of Campus Life on everything that is student-facing here at Brown. One of my primary responsibilities is facilitating the Campus Life Student Advisory Board, which is a board of students from across the student body with varying backgrounds, interests in academic and extracurricular activities, and they get the opportunity to provide feedback and support to the senior leaders in the Division of Campus Life. And we will soon be recruiting first-year students, so if that seems like something that your student might be interested in, let them know about that opportunity to keep a lookout. But I think today I can also offer you all the perspective of a recent graduate and a student here at Brown, and I look forward to listening and hearing your questions, and hopefully I can answer some of them from my experiences and perspectives as a recent graduate.
Good afternoon, warm welcome, families. My name is Peggy Chang, she, her, hers pronouns. I am one of the associate deans in the college, which means I'm an academic advising dean. We steward several academic advising programs and policies and services. I'm also, my other big hat is I'm the director of a place called the Curricular Resource Center for Peer Advising. I am joined by 2 of the peer advisors, Daniel and Lila. The Curricular Resource Center was founded by students who wanted a better advising space, or an effective, robust advising space in light of all the choices that students make in an open curriculum. So my goal here today is to not just represent the programs that I run, but to give you a flavor, a sense, a taste of academic life at Brown. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Branch, he, him, his. I'm the Associate Director for Student Activities. And the Student Activities Office works with and supports almost 500 student groups on campus. So one thing that's really exciting about the work that we do is we work with all sorts of students who have all sorts of interests, and all of my fabulous peers here on the dais at the table, and also out in the audience as well. So we work really closely with organizations like our student government, our UCS, which is our Undergraduate Council of Students, which recognizes new student groups and oversees their procedures and processes, our Undergraduate Finance Board, which allocates the money which you and your students have contributed as part of your student activities fee, and then Class Coordinating Board, which is responsible for doing events for each class year. We oversee the Campus Center building, so some of you all maybe have seen the Campus Center, been inside the Campus Center. It's on the north side of the main green, so the building with all of the steps and the arch that you can go through to get out to Waterman Street. I've been at Brown for about 7 years in a few different capacities, and like Dean Chang and Felicia did a master's degree, did some graduate work here, and I'm just really excited to hear the questions that you have for all of us. One thing about the Student Activities Office that I think we share with all of the other offices is we're really invested in helping your student find their sense of belonging and where they fit in, how they fit in, and if the place that they fit in hasn't been created yet at Brown, helping them to create a new space, right, and connect across campus. So really, welcome to everyone. We're excited to have you here, excited to have you here in person and virtually, and looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you all. Thank you. And I think this gives you a nice glimpse of the collaboration that takes place on campus and within campus life and with the college. We all come together in supporting these transitions. Now, we received a lot of questions in advance of this session. What I've done, though, is share that with the panelists and then ask them for what the most important nugget of information they can give you with their many years of experience on this campus. So this is really their distilled best tips for how to manage these transitions over the next few weeks and their journey through their adventure at Brown. I'm going to start with Sean. I'm going to go back to you. You had the most time to rest so far.
So I think transition is really, really important and sometimes gets overlooked. And I think our staff members here really want to hone in on that transition from high school to college. They don't just come to move in and become a college student just like that. Transition also happens for an entire year for our work. When navigating that, we understand that your students might change a little bit. You are in charge of their diet, their schedule, when they woke up, when they went to bed, and now they have to do that themselves. So you might engage with them a little bit differently. You might, see some disengagement or might see a lot of engagement, right? Some of your students are like, oh my gosh, they'll talk to you every single day. And then some you won't even hear from until December. And that's normal. It's gonna happen. So my biggest nugget is to really have a schedule of time where you can connect with them. A phone call every 3 days or every Sunday, a video chat, things like that. And if they're unresponsive, then I think sending them a little text message with a Venmo or a Cash App, it will, really spark their interest. But you also have to understand that they might be really gabby, or you might ask them a question, they'll respond with, oh, blah, blah, okay, whatever. And that's okay. But I think if you have the schedule of time with them, if you ask really thoughtful, open-ended questions where it's not just one word, that you get a full sentence, I think that goes a long way in you becoming a part of their world here at Brown. I would also say that plan ahead. You know that Thanksgiving is 2 months away. You know that family and Parents and Family Weekend is next month. You know that the holidays are coming. Book the plane tickets, book the planes, do all that, work so that they can understand and see some light at the end of the tunnel, because they'll get really centered in on their work, but you want to give them hope to come back home too, so you can connect with them. So that's my biggest nugget. Thanks for letting me share.
So I have many things to choose from, but the one that I think resonates the most for me in this space is when we think about where education happens, we have the benefit of the open curriculum. Your students are going to be engaged with so many wonderful courses, so many so that they're going to have trouble figuring out which ones they're going to take. And often there's this fear of missing out, that, well, I need to take, I'm not going to be able to take the subjects that I want, or there's just too many great options. And classes are one aspect of their educational journey. The other aspect is the learning that happens outside of the classroom. So at a center like the Sarah Doyle Center, and all of my colleagues at the other student centers that I mentioned, we are also, while we're not necessarily anchored in their concentrations, we provide a valuable place for them to put some of that theory into practice. A lot of our students are planning events that are maybe based around ideas and topics that they're learning in their classrooms, and there's a lot of value to that. So I would say when you're engaging in conversations with your students, it's really great to definitely engage with what are they learning in the classroom, but also what are they doing outside of the classroom? What organizations, what departments and centers are also occupying their time, because that's also where the education is happening. And it's really important to also put a value to that.
One thing that I would say as a recent graduate, and one thing that I think is a huge struggle, or can be, for students, is figuring out how to navigate all of their newfound free time. Sean touched on this a little bit, but I think I personally had difficulty transitioning from having every second of my day scheduled, going to school 8 hours a day, and then having my extracurriculars, doing my homework, going home, eating dinner, repeating it all the next day. And I think I would say one of the most important things is for students to make decisions that prioritize their time, both making sure to spend time doing the things they really care about, and of course, taking the time to figure out what those things are, because that, of course, might change. I found throughout my time at Brown that the thing that people come in really excited about isn't always what they leave being really excited about. So I think leaving room and time to figure out what it is that they want to dedicate their time to, and then making sure to reserve some of their time to take care of themselves and do those practices of self-care that are so important. And I've found that it's easy to let those types of practices go to the wayside when it's so exciting that we can do you have all the opportunities in the world to do the things that you want to do, especially because at Brown, I think there's a lot of opportunities that you don't have in high school. But I would just encourage you all to encourage your students to make sure that they're taking time to take care of themselves, and prioritize that time to breathe and sleep and eat. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Hi again, I'm Peggy Chang. I want to build off of what Sean, Felicia, and Mia just shared, and I'm going to switch it up a little bit from our rehearsal and share a quick anecdote from the parent reception yesterday. One of the last conversations I had while walking out was with a father and the eldest daughter, and her younger sister had just moved in, is attending Brown. And so I said, hello, so what is your daughter, what is your sister interested in? And they said, well, she's good at everything. It's like, that's great. And what does she really love? And they're like, well, she likes biology, but she's very undecided. It's like, okay. So the older sister, so much love in this question, It was so lovely, so much love. Said, I'm concerned a little bit. What advice would you have about putting some structure into her decision making? Such a great question. So I'm going to share what I said last night. All of your children got into Brown because they're brilliant. They love, like so many things. They're good at it all. They're good at it all. What Brown is inviting you to do, though, is to discover the difference between like and love. To discover the difference between like and love, because when you discover what you love here, the sky is the limit. I truly mean that. And I say that as someone who has been advising for nearly 30 years. I've had literally thousands of advisees. What I love about advising at Brown, my favorite part of my job is I get to advise with undergraduates who are so dedicated to helping students find their way. And I think the biggest transition that I want to kind of convey is in this piece about discovering the difference between like and love is it's not easy. There will be moments of uncertainty. There will be moments of not quite knowing who you are anymore, maybe. But what I said to the father and to the sister is you start with who you know you are. You know you know who you are. Start with what you know, but then be open to discovering, because I can guarantee you there is a lot to discover here. There are hundreds, 800 plus professors, nearly 2,000 classes, 80 choices of concentration, and Lila represents someone who designed her own. So there are so many of us here, faculty, staff, peer advisors, who sit with students and have these in-depth conversations about discovering who you are, what really matters to you, the impact you want to have in the world, and the difference between like and love.
Well, one drawback of going last is all of your other fabulous colleagues say almost everything, right? But I guess I want to touch on one thing that for me felt like a theme through some of the other answers is around time. And you all are here. It's the first full day, and we've got orientation. We have our activities fair where your students can learn about different student activities. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, it's only 8 semesters or it's only 4 years and we've got to do it. And we've been building to this time. They only have 4 years. But they have time, and it's okay for you and for them to take their time, right? So just to give you a little bit more of an example of what I mean, working at the student activities office, we get to see students, who come in as first years, who have it all together, who are in the same groups and leaders in the same organizations all 4 years, right? And they know what they want, and that's excellent. But that's only one way to do it, right? There are also students for whom it takes until their senior year to decide what the difference between what they like and what they love, and that can be both in the classroom or out of the classroom, or as Felicia was talking about, merging the theory and the praxis, right? So I know, especially in this day and age, I went to college a while back, and it feels like each year the intensity level gets higher and higher and higher. I know you all know that firsthand, but it's okay to stop. It's okay to look around and say, you know what? Maybe this semester I'm not going to join 5 new clubs. Maybe this semester I'm just going to, stay in the one club that I'm in, or, maybe I'll take one new opportunity, right? And just know that you have time and to lean into that, lean into the quiet, as I think Mia was alluding to, the downtime, the time to think, the time between classes when you might be just hanging out with a friend or, going into someone's office hours, right? So just, the time is going to go by quickly for you all as parents and family members, as students, but also sort of take the time and make the most of the time that you're here, right? And it's okay to not do everything all at once, right? And that's one thing I think, as Peggy was talking about, your students are coming in having been the best of the best and having been totally overprogrammed in high school from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., it's okay for them not to know for a little while. It's okay to be in a place of discovery.
Thank you. A lot of great tips right there. Good wisdom. Matt, I want to stay with you with one of the questions from the audience. And just a reminder, please feel free to continue to submit questions. One of the questions is about the class events that take place and how, and I think, Sean, you might be able to chime in on this as well. What's the difference between a first year event and the different years as they go through?
Yeah, that's test. Okay, it's on. That's a great question. So our class coordinating board, our 4 programming boards. Currently, we have the sophomore, the junior, and the senior boards. The first year board is not elected because your students haven't started yet. But each of those class years is charged with creating events at least once a month for their specific class, right? And those things can look, there's some things that we do every year. We do senior week for graduating students every year. There are a few other large-scale events we do every year, but it's largely up to the board and what they hear from the students, right? So, some students might want to, in the fall, do something like apple picking, right? Or in the past few years where we've gone in and out of virtual and in-person events, there might be a need for something, say last year at this point, where the students really want to come together and congregate in person, right? So the sky's the kind of the limit, but the students are really looking to and respond to the needs of their individual class years, which is why we have them organized in that way. Right, so if you have a student who might be interested in convening events for other first-year students or other transfer students who are sophomores, I encourage them to get involved. And we'll help them in terms of maybe letting you know what happened last year, the year before. But it's up to them. One thing that's really exciting about being at Brown is that there are resources here to do what they want to do, right? So things can be off campus, things can be on campus. Sometimes we have overnight events, right? So if they can dream it, they can do it for the most part here. So did that answer the question?
You did.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. All right, my next question is for Peggy. We did have a question about the grading system. Would you like to weigh in on grading system a little bit?
Sure, the grading system? Yeah. Yes, Brown has, tied to the open curriculum is a philosophy of learning. So it's not just we don't have distribution requirements and you can take anything you want. It's not really, that's not our philosophy really. Our philosophy is we want students to center learning. We want students to center discovery. And we want, and this is very hard, right? Because every single one of the students here is very focused on grades in order to get into Brown. Absolutely, right? Believe it or not, students who take most of their classes SNC, satisfactory no credit, students who get C's, get into top programs, top jobs. I can tell you because I've seen it. So we don't calculate GPA, grade point average. We don't have a dean's list. We don't rank students. We, in a sense, with our grading system, are de-emphasizing competition, de-emphasizing putting front and center doing well in the class. We are trying to center learning. We're trying to center taking a risk and doing something differently. So that is not to say that grades don't matter at all. That's not what we're saying. But the advisors in the different departments, the concentration advisors, the faculty, a whole bunch of us do advising for graduate programs. I just had a meeting today with an independent concentrator who's doing a fabulous concentration, multidisciplinary arts performance one, and is applying to graduate school, PhD programs, the top ones in the country. Doesn't have a perfect record, did some courses, SNC, but is being encouraged by their faculty that they are top candidates at these programs. So, but this is again, I totally get it. This is different because students came from a different mindset, and we're introducing a new mindset. And this is where, though, conversations with peer advisors and staff faculty advisors is important. I'd love to introduce Lila and Daniel on this question on grades and how you've made those decisions. That'd be awesome, like the real deal. Tell us.
Can you hear me if I talk loud? Like, why don't you come up?
Please introduce your whole.
Right. Hi, I'm Lila. I'm a current senior, class of 2023, and I work in the Curricular Resource Center. I'm doing an independent concentration in computational neuroscience, so Brown doesn't actually offer it, but I've created it myself.
I'm Daniel. I use he, him pronouns. I'm class of 2025, and I also work at the CRC, and I'm concentrating in archaeology in the ancient world and Egyptology and Assyriology.
Yeah, so I think in terms of grades, one thing that it did take me a while to sort of get comfortable with, I think it took pretty much my whole first year to recognize the fact that grades aren't nearly as high stakes here as they were in high school. In high school, obviously, grades were very important. They felt especially important because you wanted to get into college, you wanted to go somewhere good, you wanted to go somewhere you liked. Here, grading takes a much more casual approach. I feel like in most of my classes, there are obviously exceptions, but in a lot of classes, professors are grading you obviously on your performance, but also just on your general interest, your general level of care about the topic in the course. So this is my second to last semester. I've finished most of my concentration, and I'm taking a lot of classes for fun this semester. Just classes I've always wanted to take but never had the time to before. And I'm planning to take most of them pass-fail, and I'm not very worried about that because I know that it will all work out. It doesn't really benefit me to take a class for a grade that I'm really just doing to try out a new subject in. So that's definitely one thing that takes a while to get familiar with and get comfortable with, but this idea that the grading system here is really meant to help you academically. No one's out to get you, no one's trying to catch you. We don't have those professors that brag about how only 10% of their class ever gets A's. That doesn't really happen here. It's more just all part of the learning experience.
Yeah, my experience has been very much the same. I want to echo what Lila said in saying that that attitude kind of pervades all of Brown. It's not just the administrative line that they sell to people. It's very much my professors are concerned with making sure that people are showing a genuine effort and genuine passion for the material. They're not trying to catch you out. And I will also say that taking classes SNC has no bearing on concentration, honors, nothing. It's very much, they just want to know that you're learning regardless of, you know, whether you're taking it for a grade or SNC or whatever grade you receive. That's not an issue for pretty much anyone that I've encountered at Brown. That's not a focus.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit to the social and emotional transitions that students go through. One of the questions that we had come in was about warning signs. I think, Sean, this might be good for you to talk about what are the things that we should be looking for that might be concerning, and then how do you approach that as a parent?
Really great question. So we've done a lot of research and we've done a lot of surveying of our previous first-year students. So we have a really good understanding throughout the year of what they'll be feeling, what they're going through, and what will impact them. I'll give you a really good example. Research shows the first 6 weeks of a semester is make or break it. That is when we'll know whether your student likes it here or wants to come back home. If you look at the calendar, 6 weeks is Indigenous Peoples Weekend, our first long weekend. So that's when you will find out if your student likes it here or wants to stay home. So we've done a lot of work those first 6 weeks to make sure that they get connected to at least somebody on campus, whether it's their roommate whether there's community coordinator, whether it's their Mickle John, whether it's an area coordinator, one of our professional staff members that lives in the residence with them, just to get a better understanding of who they are as a person. Are they a morning person? Do they like to study? Do they like to travel? Do they like to go out? And then we craft engagements and activities around their interests and their passions in the residence halls, and have a really good collaboration with all of our colleagues here on the stage. So we get to figure out, oh, they're not going to class. So Peggy reaches out to one of us and says, you know, so-and-so, Mary is not coming to class right now. Do you mind doing a wellness check for her? We'd be happy to. We talk to the community coordinator and we say, hey, your resident Mary's not coming to class. Why don't you give her a knock, see how she's doing, figure it out, you know? Another really great example is that around November, guess what? The money runs out for them. They're spending all their money the first 2 months around food, their flex points, and things like that. So that's when we talk about budgeting. That's when we talk about student employment for the next semester. We really think about and try to project some of these things that happen to your first year students so that we put them in the right positions so that they can make the best choices. And all through this entire journey, we want them to develop autonomy and agency in their choices. Parents, what you can do is really have an understanding that if they're not calling you, like I told you earlier, like you used to talk to them every single day. That's weird. They're not picking up anymore. Let us know. We'll reach out. Or they're talking to you way too much. That means they're not connecting with their friends on campus. So we need to make that happen as well, too. So you see some of those little tics or little changes in their demeanor and their behavior. We're happy to investigate. We're happy to be a referral, and we're happy to connect them and make sure they have a successful year.
So, somebody,
Peggy, do you want to add into
excellent.
that?
Just in terms of how to get in touch, if you are worried, 2 emails, either one works. Student support at brown.edu goes to the Student Support Services Deans. They're especially experts at working with students in crisis or who are kind of struggling, having a hard time personally, or college at brown.edu. Those are checked routinely, and we'll find your email. So.
Thank you. So we have a question about, now I know, Felicia, you manage the Women's Center, but question about what other types of centers we have on campus and how do they support students just in general? I know you're very interconnected with all of them.
So, as I mentioned a little earlier, I'm one of 6 centers. So the other centers being the Brown Center for Students of Color, LGBTQ Center, Office of Military Affiliated Students, and the Global Brown Center for International Students. So we are all, and I love this sort of bridge from talking about the very intentional student support that exists on this campus. We all, even though we are in different offices and buildings, we all talk to each other. We're all in communication. So our centers know the resources to refer your students to. And if our colleagues in the Dean of the College or Student Support Services knows that one of your students is very active in one of our centers, there's communication that happens. Like we have that communication. It's very intentional, the level of support here. And that's something I've really appreciated working here at Brown. We provide a lot of resources, programming throughout the year, really alluding to what Sean mentioned. We're very attuned to the different time periods. So we think about, okay, it's midterm season. We need to get those study breaks happening. It's finals period. We need to make sure we are open a little later so students have additional places to study that's outside of just in their dorm or at the library, really diversifying where they can find productive workspace or just productive de-stress space. So we also think about time in that way. And we, myself and my other colleagues, we have many, many conversations with students. And often it's the sort of like at the water cooler conversations. We love engaging in those impromptu conversations when students are just hanging out at our centers. Those are my favorite moments because that's where I get to learn, well, what are students studying in classrooms? What are they Are they maybe having issues that they just need a listening ear? A lot of the myself and my colleagues at the other centers, we are that listening ear, and we also employ student staff that work with us who are other listening ears. And one particular program that I want to highlight and at the Sarah Doyle Center is the Women, Gender, and Sexuality Peer Counselors. So that's a cohort of 11 undergraduate students who's co-supervised by our center and the LGBTQ Center. And the Brown Center for Students of Color has a similar cohort of students called the Minority Peer Counselors, and UFLY has the Undocumented First Generation Low Income Peer Counselors. And these are their peers that are going to be supports who are creating events and programs for students, really helping throughout their transitions, the many transitions they'll have across their 4 years at Brown. So I think that's one of the most integral supports is also that peer support, and that's just, we're one portion of that because there's other peer leaders who are also providing that type of resource.
Thank you. Next question I will direct towards Mia, but I think Peggy, you might be able to add into this. One of the questions that came in was about a student who's considering taking 5 classes in the first semester. And would you recommend that, or do you have strong feelings either way about that?
That's an interesting question. I think I would probably recommend against it for the first semester in the spirit of trying to figure out what life is like at Brown and adjusting to how a student wants to spend their time. I think there are a lot of students who can take 5 classes and be super successful in all that they do, but I personally I think I would recommend holding off and waiting to see how the workload is once they're at least a semester in before trying. But of course they can if they want to, in theory.
Yeah, I rarely give blanket advice because of the diversity of the student body and context and situations. But on this one, this is blanket advice. Take 4 classes your first semester here. Because one of your 5th class is making friends. Your 5th class is learning about all of what Brown has to offer. Your 5th class is the Dalai Lama's coming, and you want to make sure you get to that event. And 4 classes is plenty. Most students here take 4 classes a semester. 3 classes is also full-time. 5 classes is also full-time. And sometimes a student is experiencing a challenging semester, and we will also talk with students and authorize a reduced course load. And so we do that as well for even to 3, 2, or 1 classes if necessary. But 4 classes is plenty. You will find, say, Lila will probably confirm this. She's been a TA for several computer science classes. A computer science class may, outside of class, be as much as 15 to 20 hours of work a week. If you're in another STEM type class, engineering or chemistry, you have that lab, and that lab is 5 or 6 hours long. And as someone who's a humanist, we both did the Public Humanities Master's Program here. Don't tell Toni Morrison that literature or creative writing isn't a lot of time too. When you really throw yourself into the classes here, your students will find 4 classes is plenty. Now, I always have advisees who take 5, who try out 5, maybe their 2nd or 3rd semester. And my advice there is see how it's going. By the 5th, 6th, 7th week, have a conversation with your advisor. If you feel like you're always kind of behind the 8 ball, not quite getting to all of them, you're doing 3 classes well, but the other 2 you're never quite doing, it's okay to drop a class and to drop down to 4. And so a lot of my advisees try out 5, some succeed and keep going with it, and others like, you know what, Peggy, you were right. I'm going to drop this class.
Thank you. So one of the questions we got, and I'm going to direct this to you, Matt, but I think if anybody has some advice on this as well. So one of the questions was about a conservative on campus, if you have a conservative student. And I know one of the groups that you have at Student Activities are the Brown Republicans, and we have other groups with a more conservative bent to them. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you, and I really appreciate that question. So we have a bunch of advisors in our office, and we split our work up based on themes, so performing arts or academic groups. And so I actually work with all the political groups on campus. So I do advise, the Brown Republicans, the Brown Democrats. And, part of my personal and professional philosophy is that everybody has a place at Brown, right? And making sure that every student has their ability to bring the speaker that they want to bring, engage that they want in the way that they want to engage, right? Always, and we try and encourage students to do this always in a respectful way, respecting other students, identities and their lived experience, right? But part of our job, in not only in the student activities office, but throughout campus, is to make sure that there is space for everyone, right? So. I meet with almost all of the political groups at the beginning of every year to go over, the guidelines, right? Because one thing about politics is everything doesn't always work coming to campus, right? If someone's running for office, they can't particularly, receive university funds to come and speak, right? So we go over rules. But I also want to make sure that students feel like a sense that they have their space, right? They have their ability to express themselves and to bring people to campus or convene as they want, right? And then that sometimes means having conversations with students in other groups if there are challenges, right? And making sure that everybody has a space and a place at Brown, right? So there are many conservative students at Brown. There are students who are in, conservative leaning groups. And we support those students, and we want to make sure that they bring the people who they want to be able to bring to campus, and they are able to engage in campus the way that all of our students are able to engage, right? And so this is a question that I think comes up often at Brown because there is a, sometimes Brown has an association with either a particular ideology, right? But part of our work is to make sure that whether that's the case or not, that all of the students feel like they have a space at Brown. And I'd love to hear from my peers here about how they've engaged with that as well.
Sure, I can tag in. I think at the heart of it is conflict, and people are afraid of conflict. They're afraid to be wrong. They're afraid to be not right. And conflict is just a meeting of different ideas and different passions and trying to figure out how can we live and work and play in the same place. We get a lot of conflict in our residence halls, right? Our roommates. Some of your students have only had a single room, right? How many's had a single room at home? Their son or daughter has had a single room, right? And now they're gonna have another roommate, or maybe two. And we have to figure out how we can live, work, and play together. And we shouldn't run away from conflict, we should embrace conflict. Because if we're at two ends, we're always gonna stay here. But if we engage in meaningful conflict and respect each other, we'll both move forward together. And that's what I think Brown is all about, moving forward together. And we're here to teach them how to do that. And this is where they can practice, where the risk isn't so high. We're a little mini society, and we try to recreate the world as it seems outside of this world, and they need to be exposed to that. They need to understand that, and we're happy to teach them.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? No, we're good. That was covered very nicely. So this question's a little bit lighter, and I can take that one. We had a question about Family Weekend and what that's all about and what you can expect. This is an event that's very near and dear to my heart. I've been planning it for years, so I'll tell you, first off, one thing to know is that it does change every year. It's not a set date. This year is October 21st through the 23rd. The dates for next year, for 2023, are already on the website. So if you want to make your plans ahead of time, you can. I don't remember exactly those dates, but they're up there. And we're working on dates for 2024 as well. Unlike commencement, which I'll give you a little tip, is always the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. So you can figure out what that's going to be in 2026. That's when you'll be back here. Family Weekend. Usually we kick it off right around mid-afternoon because we know people are traveling from work and other places on Friday. So most of the core events start Friday afternoon through Friday evening. It's a wonderful mix of large events like this. We were having keynote speeches, academic forums, and things of that nature. And then we also have a lot of student activities groups that Matt manages. We have a wonderful a cappella community at Brown, and there's all sorts of performances by them, as well as the different centers and organizations on campus that are opening their doors to everyone. So it really is a campus-wide initiative. And one of the really exciting things this year is on Saturday night, Brown is sponsoring a water fire in downtown Providence. If you've never seen water fire, you've probably heard the word a million times since you've been here. I encourage you all to take a look. And that's my nugget of information, really, is to get beyond the Brown campus and enjoy Providence and Rhode Island beyond here. I meet a lot of students who, in their fourth year, they're asking me, what should I see in Rhode Island? And I said, well, what have you seen for the past 4 years? So I do encourage people to look beyond. It's a wonderful community here beyond the campus as well. And so Family Weekend will continue all the way through Saturday and up through Saturday night, where we'll cap it off with water fire. And then Sunday is typically pretty quiet. Some of our colleagues in the chaplain's office host some events typically. I don't know if they'll do it this year, but we will have some services Sunday morning. But it's usually a very low-key day where we allow you to spend time with your students. One thing to note is that if you don't have the ability to come back here, that's okay. One thing COVID has allowed us to do is really learn our virtual tools, and we will be presenting some things virtually. We've been trying to record as much as possible and have that available for you. And then our colleagues in the U-Fly Center that Felicia had mentioned, they always are, and not just them, but the Global Brown Center as well, they're considering those students who may be on their own that weekend and planning alternate activities for them as well. So if you can't make it this year, that's fine. Look towards the calendar and maybe another year. So that's my Family Weekend question, and we're getting close to the end. So I think I will do just a quick lightning round with all of you to give me your closing thought, and then we will wrap it up. And I'll give you a little bit of more information. We're going to have a treat for you in just a bit, and I'll tell you after we get their closing thoughts. Nat, we're going to start with you this time. Give Sean a break.
That was a shock. One thing, I've just been thinking about all of the things that others have said. One thing that's really exciting about Brown is this combination of sort of like academic passion and outside of the classroom passion. And one plug I want to say about our office and so many of the other offices is that sometimes the things that the students end up doing for their career aren't the things that they end up doing for their concentration. So we have, for example, Ivy Film Festival, which is the largest student-run film festival in the world. Many of the students who we see come back after they graduate are working in the film industry, and they didn't concentrate in that, right? So there are opportunities here at Brown in every corner for those who seek those, and there's not only one way at Brown. So I just encourage you and encourage your students to just enjoy all that Brown has to offer, and know that their path might be a little bit different than the path that you might have set out for them, but that's going to be okay, because Brown is a great place, and we have an amazing set of students and staff and faculty who are here to support you.
My closing thought is community, and there's so many things we could have shared, and we didn't have time, but Lila is the departmental undergraduate group Doug leader for the independent concentrators. Daniel is the Dig Doug leader for archaeology. Ha 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 ha. Yuck yuck. Okay, never mind. So students are really passionate about building community, helping other students find community. Our colleagues in the chaplain's office have interfaith suppers. There's a Shabbat Friday Hillel dinner every Friday, I believe, still now back because we're beyond the height of COVID. There's so many places to find community. Learning is relational, and going back to what Sean said, we work really hard here to help students find community.
I would like to leave you all with just a reiteration of my earlier point about encouraging your students to make sure that they take time to take care of themselves and to maintain their mental health, and make sure that they remember to prioritize their well-being, because sometimes we can feel pressure to, prioritize academics or the activities that we're a part of, but making sure that you're okay is also really important and important to remember throughout their time at Brown.
My closing thought is, and this connects a little bit, Mikkel, with the water fire, that's so exciting, to really encourage your students to also engage with the greater Providence community, with all that Rhode Island also has to offer. I'm a California transplant, and I've lived in Rhode Island for 15 plus years at this point, and I still haven't seen everything. And it is the smallest state, but still jam-packed with so much to do. And I think even as you plan your visits with your students, like go in and take a tour of some of the sites that we have.
First, I wanted to thank my esteemed colleagues. It's been an honor to be up there on the stage with you all, so this was great. I want to thank Mikkel for putting this together. It's an amazing family and parent weekend that we put together, the welcome, so thank you so much. It's been an honor to talk to all of you. But now that I have a captive audience, I want to share my grievances with you all. So, grievance number one, what really grinds my gears about your students? They're so nice. They were so grateful. They were so thoughtful. They are so happy to be here, and that love and that energy we've all been feeling these past couple of days. Grievance number two, there's too much to do here. So if they call you and say there's nothing to do, they're lying, okay? So now you know what they know, what we know, so now you know, okay? You're in the know. And grievance number three, this weather has been phenomenal, and let's try to keep it up. But thank you all for being here so much. It's been awesome.
Thank you, Sean, Felicia, Mia, Peggy, and Matt. I am blessed with some wonderful colleagues here on stage and throughout the campus. I hope you've all gotten a really good sense of the types of supports that are available to your student and to you. And if you don't remember any of the websites or email addresses, you can always email family@brown.edu, and we can point you in the right direction. So we are your specific support for parents and families, and I do hope that you will use us in that way. Now that we're completing the weekend, at the back of the tent, you will see a green and white truck. That's Dell's Lemonade. That's a Rhode Island tradition. If you've never had it, please go help yourselves. It's frozen lemonade, and it is delicious. But also feel free to come up and speak to any of us up here or in the audience, and we would love to talk to you. Thank you.